Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. Before I introduce my guest, who's really, really awesome, I'm just going to share the crystal-infused scented candles. My mate Victoria does a really awesome job with these, and her website is isabeljcandleco.com. And if you're watching on YouTube and Rumble, you can see the Sexual Desire candle here I have. This one's been very interesting for me the last 3 weeks, so if anyone wants any candles, she has Trust the Universe. She has Self-Love, Self-Worth. Really awesome candles. They're infused with crystals. This one's infused with rose quartz. And then at the end, once the wax burns out, you can actually keep those crystals as well. So she's really, really awesome. Jump on her website and use the code Breaking Free, and you can get 10% off your order. With that being said, I was guided on Instagram on a story. I don't actually follow Brendon yet, but I was guided to a story, and it was one of his posts. And then I jumped on his page, jumped on his website, and I thought, wow, the story of Brendon is very similar to the one I've had, which many of my listeners and viewers will know. And it's really awesome to have another young man out there, especially in Australia, helping men take back control of their health and their lives. So I'm very gratefully joined by Brendon Giebel today. Giebel? Yep.
Deal. Close.
Close. He's really awesome. He's got a really awesome story. I'm looking forward to delving into his story, his work, and his message as well. So, without any further ado, Brendon, welcome to my show, mate. Very, very happy to have you here. And I'm looking forward to you sharing your story today and whatever else we speak about. I'm just looking forward to it. So, yeah, if you want to tell my listeners and my viewers who you are, and I've already done that, but yeah, I'm just looking forward to this one today. So, I'll mute my microphone and you can speak away.
Yeah, thanks. I
No worries.
appreciate you for bringing me on, and also too for the work that you're doing as well. I think, we were having a bit of a conversation before, and I think the more men that are doing this and opening that pathway, the better it can help everyone else. So, a little bit about me. I I was fortunate enough to kind of have a breaking point early on. I think we all have a point at some point. And I was just fortunate enough to have that when I was a bit younger. And yeah, so in my late teens and early 20s, I was very shy, socially anxious, to the point of even vomiting one night. Um, I struggled with eating disorders. I was working fly in, fly out at the time. And I was on an island with 7,000 people, and this is where I felt the most alone I've ever felt. And there was people everywhere. And I was binge eating, like I'd eat 4 or 5 plates of food and then shove my fingers down my throat trying to vomit the stuff up. I would starve myself the next few days, try and make up with the excessive workouts. But during it, it made me happy somehow. Just like causing pain on myself, it was kind of like a big distraction. Yeah, I don't really know why, but it just kind of made me happy. But you could tell that doing that for so long, and shutting myself off, and that kind of led me down a bit of a dark path. And to one night, I was living in South Brisbane, and I was on a building. It was about 7 stories. I was staying on 7 stories, and yeah, I was done. I'd had enough, and I went to, I literally grabbed onto the rail, and I was about to jump off. Then I heard this real deep voice here that's like right in the back of my head there, and I've heard this voice a few times now, especially doing some breath work and that kind of stuff. And it just said to me, "Are you really going to give up that easy?" And it was just a decision then where I was like, no. It was either a yes or no. It was two, none of this but or anything. It was just yes or no. And from then, I didn't know what to do, but I just started reading, and then I started doing events and doing all that, going to seminars, trying to do everything that I could. For about 6 years, it took me, and I was getting good. Like I was working in construction, and people were noticing a big difference in what I was doing, and they could see where I was back then to where I am now. And then I was like, I was supervising, so I was running some of those jobs, and found enjoyment in helping some of the guys. They'd be like struggling with some things, and I'd say, "Oh, you should do this, or you should read this book, or whatever." And then I was working down in Adelaide, and someone said to me the same. I was like, "I really enjoy this. Like, wouldn't mind, kind of doing something on the side with this or whatever." And he said, "Oh, you should try, or you should get in contact with these people." So what I'd been doing to everyone else, he did back to me. And that was an NLP course. And when I first studied that, that was the first help I'd really got from like someone directly, like a coach or whatever. And then yeah, then everything just kind of went on from then. And from that was a few years ago now that I did that, 4 years I think. And then I just kept studying and training. And yeah, over the last 3 years alone, we've transformed the lives of over 1,000 men, which is amazing. And yeah, we're only just getting started. So
Mate, that is just awesome. You talked about the voice in the back of your head, because I had a very similar one too during my journey as well. And it's very, very powerful once you listen to that voice, because I know for me, that voice was speaking to me for a very, very long time.
yeah, I think there's a difference too. There's a difference between the voice that's like the little bitch voice that's kind of talking you out of it, and the negative talk that's going on, and actually a voice that I've got goosebumps thinking about it.
Same
Truth,
here.
you can't fake that stuff, right?
No, you can't.
Um, and so yeah, I think when you can allow yourself to become aware of that, it's guiding you. Like there's obviously some bigger force that's here, and you know, I think when you can tap into that,
Yep.
that's where things are going to change.
Yeah, it's that's just so powerful, mate, because it's just going to resonate with so many men as well. Just with in terms of your story, well, obviously your teens and your early 20s was just full of what young males are doing right now, still drinking, partying, doing drugs, all those things.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't so much when I first turned 18, but thinking back on it now, there was always a bit of always kind of struggling a bit, and it was like all or nothing. Like I'd either have none or I'd have 100.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and so I was into fitness too, so it was kind of like a all or nothing for me on one side, and then all or nothing on the other. And you could see like just the ups and downs and all that. And yeah, I had a number. I tried to run away and went overseas for a while. Didn't want to come back, and I struggled with stuff all over there, like every night, just kind of drinking and doing whatever. So yeah, I think we don't get taught this shit at school. We don't get taught how to deal with things. We don't get taught by our parents. It's not their fault. They just don't know. And so monkey see, monkey do. We see it on movies. We see it, what we consume programs us, right? So we see it on movies, TV shows, all of this in the households, and that's how we deal with things. Have a drink to feel better. Have a drink to escape. Watch a movie. Watch whatever. And you can't deal with it if you keep running away from it. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And it's absolutely spot on. Just in terms of, yeah, well, when you started listening to that voice and the emotions and that were coming up, what were some of the things that you were doing to help, I guess, change from the such negative state that you were in to then to start the journey, I guess, to more loving and less fear?
Yeah. I think to start with, I was more um distracting myself, even like I was just trying to push through it in terms of like I was doing so much. Like I would get up at early, like after a little bit, I'd get up early and I'd be doing all these different things. Um, but it was kind of just like trying to push them out rather than actually sit with them, because the feeling's the healing, right? And so
Mm.
you need to be able to feel that to heal it. So I started meditating, which was a big thing, but also too, there's a book called The Work by Byron Katie. One simple question is it true? And so for 2 years straight, I would every day I'd write down something, and they've now developed into some tools called the flips. But one of them is like, yeah, is it like if I had a thought or a belief or something about me, I'd say, is it true? And can I be 110% sure that this is true? And when I started realizing that, I was like, the reality that I built for myself, when I started questioning it, I realized that it was just the perception of what it was. It wasn't actually the truth. And so that just gave me so much liberation, because I was like, well, this belief that I have about myself isn't true. this thing that I'm feeling, this thing that I'm saying, that's not true. So, what is true? And then you can kind of end up going, well, I can make whatever I want to be true. Um, so that simple little question changed a lot for me when I first started.
That's awesome. So you started going in deep to why you were doing the things you were doing and why you were feeling the way you were feeling, I guess.
Yeah. And I had to sit with it first, but I had to be willing enough to
Yeah.
go, this isn't working. Like, I sit in this rather than try and escape from it or run away from it, distracted.
No, that resonates with me so much because I was doing the exact same thing. And it's so powerful once you sit with it, and you always get the answer when you ask those deep questions. And it sounds like you were doing very, very similar things as well. Did you find that when you were in those dark days, did you find it was very, I guess it's easy to escape, but did you find it was hard to sit there with yourself and face, or I call it the dark night of the soul, or your shadow, or like, yeah, you want to delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely to start with, for sure. And that's why I didn't want to.
Hmm.
Um, but when you actually, it's not that bad. Like when you actually do go there, you're like, wow, I wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Um, but yeah, like even when I first started meditating, I just, went to YouTube like everyone does, and they want to learn how to do something. And I just typed in there, can't remember now exactly, but it's 5 minute or 10 minute meditation or something. And there was one there, it was like trying to like just calm your thoughts and whatever. And I was like, I can't. And like, how can people sit there with nothing? And so I thought maybe there was something even worse or even more wrong with me because I couldn't sit there in a place of nothingness. Um, I come to realize now that you can't just switch that off. Like if I said to you, you're going to meditate, but your heart's not going to work. We're going to stop your heart. We're going to stop your lungs. We're going to stop your kidneys. You'd go, no. But we expect our brains to stop while we're doing it. So when I realized that and realized that the thoughts and everything are just vehicles for stress, but back then I didn't. And so that was, I was like, well, I can't sit there because I have so much stuff going on. And that's why I was always reading or always listening to something because I didn't want to sit with what was going on. But once I did, I was like, that wasn't all that bad.
Hmm. Did you find yourself crying too, mate? Because a lot of men out there suppress their tears and suppress their pain and stuff. Did you find yourself crying?
Oh, I think, yeah, of course.
Hmm.
Um, Not so much at the time. But now, you know, there's it's not that I don't just start crying for no reason, but I think it's okay because if I feel something, it's like cool. I can feel both sides now. Like a lot of people only want to feel the good ones and not the good bad ones, whatever that means, good or bad perception anyway.
Hmm.
Um, but when you can, if you only want to focus on the good ones, you're missing out on half of life, you know, and so you experience the bad ones. But the more you're okay with experiencing them and you accept it, the more you realize you don't have to live there. You can live in the more healthier ones or happier ones.
That's so
Um,
true. Hmm.
and so, yeah, I do every now and then, like even telling stories and stuff and whatever. And I think I experience so much gratitude and fulfillment these days, especially like working with clients and seeing that just the life changing effects that's happened. Like, gives me sometimes I might get a bit of a tear if one of my clients is, telling me something or something like that. So I think it's just being able to um understand that, there's nothing wrong with it. I also had a belief that like my father was very angry, or what I perceived. When you suppress something, you project it too, right? So he got my suppressed anger. So he was double as angry because I was suppressing. And because of that, I had a belief that it wasn't okay to be angry. Um, and so most men get angry because anger is the outcome, not the cause, right? So there's some deeper rooted things, sadness, hurt, pain, all that kind of stuff. So I suppressed my anger because I didn't want to feel it. And I also suppressed my sadness and all of that because it wasn't okay. We used to get, I can remember being teased, well, not me, but, we used to tease everyone at school, whatever. If you were crying, like you'd be called a pussy. So for me, unconsciously, I had a belief I couldn't be angry. I had a belief that I couldn't be sad. And so, you could just imagine what would happen there.
Yeah, and it's very similar to me too, because I suppress a lot of my anger as well, mate. So I'm just resonating with all of it so far. Because did you find that when you worked on your own anger and started, I guess, expressing it with yourself and releasing that, did you find you had did you find that you sort of helped your father too?
Oh yeah, 100%. He's like, I don't see him because when you change, the world around you changes, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't see him as angry anymore. Although I know he does, but it doesn't, everyone does, I suppose, but
Mm.
it doesn't bother me, whereas it used to. And I can see, like, I've done a lot of work, obviously. But my two sisters haven't. And so they still get triggered and still get, all that kind of stuff. Whereas for me, I'm just like, cool, whatever, it is what it is. Um, the thing is, though, I think as I said, when you accept it, you don't need to live there because anger can be useful as well. It can mean that your boundaries being pushed, or I went through a phase there where working through things, I'm like, I couldn't get angry. It was just an unrealistic expectation that I had. And so whenever I get angry, I'm like, what am I expecting to happen that isn't, blah, blah, blah. End up becoming a pushover because I would just let anyone walk over me because I wouldn't stand up that my boundary had been crossed, right? So it's useful, but when it goes out of control and you don't know how to handle it, that's when it can be a problem. But as I said, it's never, it's anger's the outcome. It's not always the cause. Most times it's not. And so it's not the thing that makes us angry. It's what we think and feel about it. So when you change and change what's going on, then the external world changes and they change and they can show up differently. So like by someone changing, the ripple effect is amazing. And the way you see everyone else as well. It's um it's, it's kind of quite hard to comprehend, but when you actually see it happening, as we were saying before, things happen quickly, right?
Mm.
So when you change, everyone else can change around you as well.
It's interesting and so powerful, mate, because I'm currently, this healing journey never actually stops, but I'm seeing that as well in my own personal life too. So what you were saying there resonated a lot with me over my last few weeks. Every time I get a guest on, they always say something that I've had going on. So I was just resonating with it, mate, live on air as per usual with this podcast. I was sort of stumped for questions now, mate. I was just going to ask you, when you were going through your journey and stuff, obviously you were surrounding yourself with friends that were a lot like you. I would suppose drinking, partying and stuff. When you started implementing these changes, did you find that your friendship group changed too?
Yeah, that's a big thing. I
Yeah.
think so when I was younger, I was definitely hanging out with a lot of people, but a lot of my mates seem to get married and have kids at a young age. So didn't really, I was like searching for people that I could go out drinking with. But then I just ended up going by myself and then I'd have to have, 10 drinks to even head out there.
Hmm.
But definitely like because you're not the same person when you start working on yourself, things change. Like to me now, I have no interest in going out drinking. Like I'd be like, we have limited time on this planet as it is. I don't want to waste it in some fake reality and be sick the next day. So, and it kind of doesn't resonate with a lot of my mates. I still love them, but I just limit them. And I think that's the difference. A lot of people think that they have to spend time with those people and, all this kind of thing. But I'm like, I don't, but I want to hang out with you. I'll limit that time. I'll still talk with you and I'll do this, but I'll limit my time. But nothing's ever lost too. It just changes form. So it's not like your friendships have disappeared. They're just showing up somewhere else in your life. And so when you can understand that, you're never not going to have friends. They're just different. They're showing up differently, the same connections. And then you just attract more people into your life that are on that. I've got some mates that now that I've gone through different events and working with them, and a lot of my clients, once they're finished, they're yeah, I end up being mates with them and talk with them all the time. One of them is actually starting next week for me as a sales guy, and we're like brothers almost. And so it's like sometimes you just if you as soon as you compress and let go of something, something else expands, right? You can't have two things compressed. You can't have two things expand. So if you close the door on some things because you feel like it's not aligned to with who you're going on your journey, something else has to expand. It's universal law, right?
Mm.
When you can have that awareness and go, oh, cool, like this person here is showing up like what this person did, or this person here, and I'm getting this trait from this person and all this. You can kind of just go, well, it's not gone, it's just showing up differently, and they will be. And a lot of people say, it's a lonely journey when you start working on yourself. It can be if you believe that and if you think it like that, and you think about all the things that you're focused on all the things that you're doing differently to the people that you're with, but you'll actually find that you're just making new connections somewhere else.
Yeah, that's. I know for me when I was, well, we don't stop healing, but when I was doing started working myself, I found it a very lonely journey. And what you were saying there resonates with some of the stuff I was going through. But you're right, because as soon as I got out of that mindset that I'm never actually alone, I'm talking spiritually here, that I'm never alone. Well, then that helped me too. And then I started meeting like minds, and I started, it just made so much sense and it just, yeah, I found my journey at the start was very isolating, because I sort of just isolated myself from my old friends and just threw myself into a 2-year dark night of the soul journey. And yeah, that just resonated with me so much, man, because I felt really alone there for a couple of 3 or 4 months there for a while. Felt like I had
Yeah.
had no friends. Yeah.
And there's a difference too between being alone and lonely and feeling lonely. And I think too on that as well is a lot of us are so disconnected with ourselves, and that's why we search for validation, or we try and make please others, and we try and do all of this because we're not connected with ourselves. And so that's another thing. When you start on that journey, you don't necessarily need others because you're connecting back with yourself. You're you're coming back to the truth of who you are. um and the more that you do that, the more that you realize, like, like I, the more work that I do and the more comfortable I am, the more I realize, like, it's almost like the less social I'm getting.
Mm.
It's like, oh, it's just because it's, the more comfortable you are. Whereas previously, I wanted to be out all the time. I wanted to be the center of attention because it was validating me. I don't need that anymore. So I think that's a big thing. Is like, even though you might be externally moving away from your friends, you're probably coming back to yourself too, which means you don't need to be around others as much.
Yeah, I found that a lot too in the last few years. Yeah. Awesome advice, mate. And it's yeah, and I found too, you was touching on it before. You're just connecting back with yourself. And once I actually connected with myself, became more comfortable too. And it's a lot of, because a lot of people out there in society are so disconnected from themselves right now. And you can actually see that too when you start doing this work. Have you noticed that there's just that disconnection from themselves, from nature, from reality, from themselves? It's actually very, very prevalent, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
And when you are disconnected, like, as I was saying before, everything's equal. So there's always some kind of connection. When we feel disconnected to ourselves, we get connected to something else. If we feel disconnected in a relationship, we get connected to something else. Generally, they're more unhealthy things, you know. Um, but connection, and yeah, it's natural. It's human connection, and I feel like that's why I don't like saying that this is the reason, but everyone getting locked down and everything, that they lost that connection, and so they get connected to other things that maybe not so healthy.
Yeah, all the addictions went up, didn't they?
Yeah, and also too, an addiction, and I've got a different take on addiction, like
Uh,
drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff. That's not an addiction, because at a higher level, your emotions are just biochemical responses, right? And when you take some substance or something like that, it changes the thing. So you're not addicted to the substance, you're addicted to the emotion that you don't want to feel. You're addicted to
oh
the
my God.
the situation that you don't want to feel. And so it's like that's why, when people smoke, they might smoke, but then they give that up and they start eating because they haven't fixed inside. They're just trying to stop the habit and stop the thing. That's why rehab, not always, but most of the time, doesn't work, because they're going there trying to stop the habit. But that's not the issue. There's the thing that's inside. And so when you take away the need, there is no need for that. And that's why I've been able to help, like, one client of mine over 18 months ago now, in 2 sessions. He was addicted to I say addicted to meth for 28 years. And in 2 sessions, he's clean. And that's 18 months later. He's still clean to this day.
Wow.
Because you take away the need, you take away the thing that's inside. You don't need that external stuff.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Oh, you've stumped me again because the way, yeah, it's very interesting because there's always an emotional, yeah, when it just made sense because when I was doing all those things too, I was running away from facing what I needed to face. And that's a lot of people out there as well. And that's going to resonate with so many people.
Yeah. And it's not just that too. It's also like watching movies, watching porn,
Yeah.
diving into a job, like working. I used to work so much because I didn't want to have to be at home by myself.
Yeah.
So that it's all that's going on because that changes the chemicals in your mind as well, right?
Mm. Did you ask for help? Because a lot of men out there don't ask for help. That's a massive program right now as well. Did you ask for help?
Yeah, in a way. It's
Yeah.
funny, right? Somewhere along society, and I think it's through the schooling system. Like when we're kids, you look at a kid, they're like, "Hey, mom, dad," they're running around. Can you help me? Like they're asking, "Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this?" Even at school for the first little bit, they're always asking for help. But somewhere along the line, we get programmed that asking for help isn't good. And so we start thinking it's not.
Mm.
Now, if I don't know anything, like I ask for help. I've got just gone through a big phase in my business where I'm starting to do live events and that kind of stuff. And I was like, what? I need to find someone that can help me do this because I can try and do it myself and it might take me 5 years. Or I can ask someone to help me and, it'll happen quick. So it took me a while. Like, as I said, it was probably 6 years before I didn't want to ask for help, but by me going to events and me reading books and all that, I was essentially asking for help, but it wasn't actually going to someone.
Mm.
You'd always like have buy these little programs, and then it would like be the next thing is like book in a call with this person, and I never would because I was almost too scared to do that. I didn't want to talk to someone, just wanted to try and do it myself. But things changed. Like when I started, as I said earlier, when I first did the NLP course, that was essentially me stepping up and getting someone like direct help from someone. It was a bit like a small group kind of thing, but it was there. And as soon as that happened, my life changed dramatically. I think, and I also think too on that, like I don't like saying things too bad, but the traditional system is broken, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's based on a Freudian model, which is over 100 years old. And he says that it's not a poor man's service. It takes 100 to 300 hours per intervention. And so if someone goes for depression, they've got 100 hours to 300 hours to work through that one thing. Whereas I can do that in one session. We can do multiple interventions in one session when you work out how it's different. So I think that's adding to it. It's like, yeah, there's a big focus on talking, all these different things. Are you okay? Then you try and go get help, but then you're going into a broken system. And so a lot of men, especially like I work with I work with people who are struggling very badly, but I also work with some guys that are doing well, like, GM managers of big companies and multi-million dollar business owners and stuff. And the thing is, like, kind of lost where I was going
Uh,
there. Um, what were we talking about just then?
you were talking about how you work with general managers of big businesses,
Yeah,
and
just
you work with
before
men who
that.
are really struggling.
Yeah, just before that.
Yeah, you're talking about we're talking about help actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when you start, oh yeah, with asking for help with the different services, like we're asked or we're saying like, are you okay? And then they go to all these different services, and some of the guys that I work with who are struggling a lot, they've seen counselors, they've seen psychologists, psychiatrists. They either try and medicate themselves or they try and medicate them, but then they see like 4 or 5 different ones, and you can just tell that something's not working there. So that kind of adds to the help of like, no one can help me. And so people believe that, so they don't ask if they. I even had a couple of emails from a guy who seems to reply back to every one of my emails saying that, I can't help you. And I sent an email to him. I'm like, if you think that I can't help you, I can't. If you think I can, I can. So it's up to you. You have to choose. Because every time he's like, you can't do this. I don't have any money, blah, blah, blah. Then it was like just a different excuse either time. And I just ended up going, I'm not going to waste my time, because as bad as it sounds, but you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped, right?
Yeah,
And
what's the old saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it.
100%. 100%. So I think, that's kind of adding to it as well. But yeah, the moment I asked for help, like properly, changed things massively.
It's very important, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Because why try and figure? I think we also believe too that we should, and it's so unrealistic, we should believe that we should not have a problem. We should never have any problems. And we should also go through life without making any mistakes. We should have it all switched on, all perfect, everything. And then something happens and we regret it and beat the shit out of ourselves, feel guilty for a mistake. It's the best way we learn. And so many people are just holding on to this guilt and this regret, this shame, and not feeling good enough. It just keeps getting stacked and stacked and stacked. And then they feel like they're not good enough to ask for help, or they feel like, no one can help them, or they feel like it's not worth it, or no one can really help them, and so then they just go, well, oh, well, I'll just suck it up and drink instead.
That's the program, isn't it? And you're right. It does start in school too, because you see it all the time. These kids are, I guess, struggling, or they're asking for help, and as soon as that one person tells them something and that they're not worthy, it just sets themselves up for a path of self-destruction, really.
Yeah,
And
100%. And a lot of people believe that they're not good enough, or them they don't value themselves, right? And so if you don't value yourself, you're going to attract people into your life that don't value you either.
exactly, law of attraction.
Yeah. And so people go from one relationship to the next, both male and female, and they're attracting people that don't value themselves. I'm like, if you want to value you, if you want someone to value you, fix this,
Yeah.
and then that's when things start changing.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when you do implement these changes, you start attracting in people that are of a similar. I found that when I started implementing some change, I found people that are a couple of steps ahead. So like I'd surround myself with those people. Go, oh, this is what I need to do to get to where you are. And then when I get to that level and then it's like I meet someone that's a few steps ahead again. Almost like you, I've got a similar business myself. You're a few years ahead. And I'm like, well, I'm going to surround myself with people more like you that have got a successful coaching business, because that's what I want to be able to have as well. And yeah, it's interesting that once you start doing this stuff, you'll start surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and they're maybe a couple of steps ahead.
Yeah, 100%. You kind of want to go, you want to be the small fish in a big pond rather than the big fish in the small pond.
Exactly.
And I can't remember who said it, but they said, show us your 5 friends and I'll show you, where you're heading and what you're going to do. So if you can surround yourself with, I've got mentors and coaches and stuff myself that are way more advanced in terms of business than I am. And them just hanging around those people makes a big difference.
It does.
So I think that once you get to that point where you understand, like, cool, I can fast track this by asking for help. I can get, 5 years worth in 6 months. You just keep doing that, and it's just like, replicating that. So the more you can kind of, that's why when we go back and say limit the people that if you are doing something that you don't want to do anymore, and all of the people you hang around with are doing it, that's why it's good to limit yourself from that, because you're going to just be there. It's like people get caught up in a bad crowd. You hear that saying, then they start doing all that stuff. It's just because they're hanging around the wrong people. One of the biggest things is environment. You can't really run away from an environment. So you can't, the environment's not the biggest thing. Like if you're strong, it doesn't matter what environment you're going to be in, but eventually your environment has a big impact on on what happens to you and how you end up.
Yeah, change your environment to change your life. Yeah, powerful. Yeah. It's interesting because men often hand their power away to these figures in the system, like these psychologists and stuff. But I found that when men do that, then they get given antidepressants and all this sort of stuff, and they get given drugs and medications that sort of suppress and numb the pain. But I find that the best psychologists and the best like healers and the best people, the ones that have actually lived this life, because then you resonate with them as well. And it sounds like that, and that's just part of the system. It's like these people are giving advice on things they don't necessarily have lived themselves, or they have these bad habits and they're trying to impart advice on fixing the habit when they're drinking and partying and doing those things on a Saturday night. They're telling someone like us many years ago, we're doing those things too. They're trying to tell them to change. They're not really changing themselves. And I believe the more authentic you are and the more that you've, I guess, grown, you can help others as well because you've lived that life.
100%. It's kind of like you can't sell something you don't own.
Exactly.
If you don't own a house, you can't sell it. And so you can't teach someone else to buy a house if you haven't done it for yourself. You wouldn't, if you owned $1 million business, you wouldn't go to get advice off someone who owned $100,000 business. You'd get advice off someone who owns a, $10 million business. So if you can't do it in your own life, how can you do it for anyone else? And you can't learn about people, you can't learn about humans, you can't learn about psychology out of a textbook. I don't care what anyone says. You can learn the ideas and concepts, but you can't actually, because it's so different. Everyone's so different. And yeah, that's why it's broken. And as you said, you need to be able to do it in your own life. You think about personal trainers, if you've got overweight person trainings, you've got doctors that aren't healthy, you've got psychologists that drink every night. I know one, I'm not going to mention too much about that, but I know one that was drinking a psychiatrist that was drinking 4 or 5 times a night, so a week, and then trying to give people help and advice. So I think that's what makes this so powerful, and especially although the whole coaching industry is very much unregulated, there's a lot of people that do like a $7 online course and call themselves a coach and whatever, which it is changing. It's going to be it's going to be regulated very soon. I know there's plans coming in for that. But that's the thing. Generally, people do this because they they've wanted to help themselves, and they get to a point where, like, helping people is in our nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they get to a point and they want to help people. But I also think that a lot of people start helping others, so then they can start helping themselves. Which when I first started, I was just wanting to help myself. And then I got to a point where I was like, I really enjoy this. And it kind of, people were asking for help anyway. And I just kind of fell into it. Not so much fell into it, but, you know, I kind of took it. It wasn't something I just decided one day, right, I'm going to do a course. I'm going to become a coach. So I think everyone kind of gets that, because most people, their pit or reveals their purpose, right? The trauma leads to transformation. The darkness leads to light. The darker the dark, the lighter the light. And so people go through all of that and they start working on themselves, and then it reveals like how much they enjoy. And if you are here, you can help someone with this. So if you got out of drinking, you're qualified then to help someone. You don't need to go to a fucking uni to do all that. You can just do it because that's qualified, to me anyway. So I feel, yeah, like that was a long-winded answer,
No.
but I think that, yeah, if you can't do it in your own life, you kind of have no place to try to help others. And I think that's the biggest thing with the traditional system in all areas,
Yeah.
not just mental health, but all other areas of the healthcare system.
And the education system too.
100%, 100%.
Spot on, mate. If there's a male or even just a person, male or female, that's listening to this chat and they've resonated with this so far, mate, what would be your advice if they reached out to you and said, "Hey, look, I'm struggling. How can I take my first step to start my journey?"
The first thing is just making a decision. Um, but when I said before about having that voice, it was a decision, and it was just like, right, I want better for myself. So that's the first, just decide, because you don't need to know how, you just need to know where you want to go, and the how, you just take that next logical step, and the how will kind of like, oh. So that's the first thing, is just go, cool, I want better, and then just start doing whatever you can to help with that. What area of your life do you want to change? If it's health, then you know, educate yourself on that. If it's something to do with some kind of emotions or something, allow yourself to sit in that emotion and feel it and write it down. Write what you're feeling, acknowledge what you're feeling. That's one of the biggest things everyone doesn't want to fit. Like, as soon as something bad comes up, they're like, oh, I'm going to avoid that, or I'm going to move away. But sit in it. Um, and I also think too is us, find someone that can help you. There's no, the it's almost stupid not to. It's almost stupid. Like, plus, it took me 6 years because I didn't want to ask anyone. Whereas what I did in 6 years, I probably would have done in 6 months. So just get help from someone that you can. Like, there's no, even if it's just someone that is that can you can just talk to start with. Talking is okay to start with. If you keep talking about your problems, you're just reinforcing to yourself that you have them. But talking them to start with can get them off the chest, feel that relief. And then once they're off, then it's like, cool, what's the next logical step? And it's just like take each step on the ladder. Like, you don't have to think about, sometimes it can seem so big, but you just take that next logical step. What is it? Ask for help. What is it? Read a book, research a topic, listen to an audiobook, find a course, you know, watch some YouTube video that helps you with that. Meditate, write down some things. Just take that one next logical step. But also, always, you look at all the most successful, and I say successful in terms of financial sense, like, because success is not just financial, obviously. Um, but all of those, well-known people, they don't do it themselves. They've also got someone there that helps them. They've got coaches. You think of Tony Robbins, he's got 4 or 5 himself. And you might think, like, who would coach that? Him. But he's got, that many. So I think that's one of the biggest things. I've got 2 myself, and I will always have them. Not the same ones, like, they'll evolve, but I'll always have someone that I work with. So I think that's super important to try and find someone and fast track your results like that. It may be scary at times. You may not want to do it, but a short-term discomfort can lead to long-term gain. Excuse me. And I have a saying too: you do the hard things in life, your life will become easy. You do the easy things in your life will become hard. You do the easy things of distracting yourself. Do the easy things of, not sitting in the discomfort. Your life's going to end up hard, and that's where people, especially come to me around their 40s and 50s, and it's just a compounding interest of all these problems. Where if they sat with it when they were younger and did the hard things in that moment, they would be in that position. So sitting in those emotions, sitting in that discomfort, because as I said to start with, somewhere along there, the feeling is the healing. You have to sit with that discomfort a little bit. So yeah, just to summarize, I suppose, ask for help, write some stuff down, ask, like what I said, is it true? It's an amazing question to ask. And just do everything that you can on that next logical step, whatever it is.
That's awesome advice, mate. I can see why you're very successful at what you do, and it's such a testament to you, mate, that you're able to turn your life around. And yeah, I know I know for me, my journey was very, very, very quick in terms of some healing and stuff, but I believe we truly don't stop healing until the day we die, mate.
No. Well, they say we have 11. Well, it's your choice whether you want it. It's everyone's choice, you know. People don't even do any of it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we have 1100 to 1500 limiting beliefs. And
Yep.
by the time we're by the time we're five, 50% of our beliefs, over 50% are formed by the time we're five. We don't even have our conscious mind then. And so all of these unconscious stuff that's running around is causing all of us this
Yep.
discomfort now. And so it's a constant work. Like, you know, one of the ladies in my group where I first learned all everything that I do, one of my communities, every week we do a session. And so like one week she'll be the coach and I'll be the client. The next week it'll swap. So for the last 2 years, you know, give or take on and off a little bit, but just constantly be working through things and they're just like small little layers that you peel off. And it's yeah, when you just commit to doing that, it's like makes a massive difference. And I think it's not going to stop. Like you just once you start on this journey, you're like, cool, what's next? Like what else?
Yep.
Where else can I go? You're the thing is too, like the more that you work on yourself, the more abundant you are in every area of your life too. You know, a lot of people want to make more money. Best thing is to work on yourself because your self-worth equals your net worth. Because if you don't value yourself, you're going to get in a job that pays something that doesn't value you either. You know, for me, I wouldn't go back to any kind of job really because I value my time more than that, than trading it for whatever it is. So that's the thing is the more that you value yourself, the more everything else in your life can as well.
That's very, very awesome, mate. And it's so true too. And that's why people are stuck in this perpetual cycle of work, sleep, work, party, and hit repeat.
Yeah, because they don't know any different.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an awesome chat, mate. I think we've been going for 50 odd minutes. Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, mate? Or yeah.
Um, yeah, I think one main thing too is a lot of things like, especially with self-sabotage and stuff too. Everything's self-sabotage really but the thing is there's a disconnect between the conscious and the unconscious. It's like
Yep.
your conscious mind wants one thing and your unconscious wants the other. And 95% of us is run by our unconscious. So if you imagine something pulling this way that's got 95% of your strength, and something that's pulling this way, your conscious mind, which has got 5% of your strength, your unconscious mind's going to win all the time, essentially.
Mm.
So that's the thing. It's like not the conscious there, it's the unconscious. And generally, it's not you that has the problem in your adult life. There's some other wound or some other pattern or something that's been formed later on that's now showing up in your life. And then that's why it becomes a problem. So many people are like trying to fix their life of the symptoms that's in their life right now, but there's a deep root cause to that. And so that's the thing everyone needs to work through. Because as I said to start with, if you try and work on the symptom, stop drinking, you might start eating more, or you might start, you know, going to the gym more. So many people do that and they flip from one side to the next and they're addicted to the gym then. It might be a better addiction, but it's still an addiction. So it's always the underlying cause that's the thing. Everything's created to keep us safe, right? Like our
Mm-hmm.
mind is designed to keep us safe. That's it. It's our conscious mind that isn't. Our unconscious mind doesn't know sarcasm. It doesn't know the difference between what's right and wrong. It doesn't know any of that. It just is, and it's designed to keep us safe. So all of these behaviors, all of these things that are first happening, they're designed to keep us safe, and then they show up in our life later on, and it seems like they're hindering us, but it's just an old program that's running. So all of those things that we don't like, that we feel like they're sabotaging us, we just have to become conscious of why they actually are serving us. And then when you find out why they're serving you, you can then change what they are, you know, and find a different way to serve that purpose. You know, like people with that eat a lot, maybe they might have that are overweight I found a lot of them are protecting like a younger version of themselves that's hurting, or it's some kind of protection mechanism. They don't see it like that. But when they can find out exactly why it is, maybe something happened and they got attention when they were younger and when they were too skinny or whatever, who knows, you know? And so
Mhm.
then they start eating unconsciously because it's serving them. It's not, and then, but the conscious mind's like, I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know why I keep doing this. I keep reaching for food. I keep reaching for alcohol. I keep doing all this. The conscious mind doesn't want to, but the unconscious does. So when you can find out why it serves you, you can then put um, different things in place instead of that old behavior or habit or whatever.
In with the old and out, in with the new and out with the old. You're
Yeah,
saying, yeah.
yeah. I think too, it's not so much like a lot of people look at subtraction. They need to take away things from their life. But when you look at it a different way, where you add things, which then force out the old habits, it's kind of like um, an easy example is with the nutrition. People always restrict themselves and they say, I can't have this, I can't have this. They try and subtract
Yes.
all this stuff from their lives. But instead of focusing on what they can have and the nutrients and the fuel and all of this, which then will force out all of the other stuff. And so it's just a completely different way. Like, what can you add? Or what can someone add to their life that's then going to eventually force out those old things rather than trying to force that out? Because if there's nothing, if it leaves a gap, it's going to be filled by the best thing that everyone knows. So, yeah, it's kind of
That's
how
so
that.
true. What's one habit? Oh, actually, no, no, I will ask that. What's the one habit that you struggled to break, but then broke and then replaced with something new? Just as an example.
For me, it was eating. There was, well, I had a lot of different ones, but
Hmm.
even going on for a lot, there was eating. Um, and so I became conscious that I was I'd use food if I didn't want to, like if I was unsure about what to do, or if I was like trying to not have to do something. So it was kind of like I'd use it to distract myself from having to do something. Or if I wasn't sure, if I had some time where I didn't have much, I'd be like, I didn't know what to do, procrastination, I would do that. And also, um, if I was tired, for me, if I'm tired, everything kind of goes out the window. But this was going back a few years, obviously. Um, but yeah, so if I found myself in those two situations, I'd eat. And so I was at the time going like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't want this. And I can remember eating things and going like, why am I eating? I don't need this. I don't want this. Like, what am I doing this for? But then when I became conscious of those things and I did exactly what I said, I went listing like, cool, how is this serving me? What is it doing for me? And then I was like, cool, well, now I make sure that not every day, but I make sure that, if I kind of feel like a little bit tired, I just lay down for 20 minutes. That's it.
Hmm.
Even if I don't sleep, I still get that um time to restore myself. And I never have those things that come up anymore. And I think of food now as fuel. And I don't restrict myself on anything. If I want to have something, I will have it. But I find myself I don't want to because I feel like shit if I have something like that. So that was probably the biggest one that I struggled with for a long time, even though I was doing so much work. That was one thing that was there, and it wasn't until as you were saying, I replaced it with some better things, but I had to become conscious of how it helped me first.
Hmm. That's awesome how you changed your perspective on food. You said that you use fuels as fuel.
Yeah,
Yep.
and a saying is like fuel your Ferrari. It's like my body, like I mean, from everything, it's like a strong body, strong mind, strong mind, strong body. And I treat my body like a Ferrari, and I'm in the best shape of my life now because of it, and it's going to keep getting better. And so that's what I'm like. If you had a Ferrari, you wouldn't put E10 or the shittest fuel in it, would you? You'd put the
No.
best stuff you had. So you're either fueling a Ferrari or you're fueling a beat up old Falcon. And to me, I want the better I function, the better I feel, better my life is too. So it all starts with what goes into your body.
Spot on. That was an awesome chat, mate. Thanks for jumping on and sharing the last hour or so with me, mate. I reckon a lot of people are going to resonate with this, mate, and hopefully you get some people reaching out. Speaking of reaching out, where can people find you, mate? We'll put the rest in the bottom.
Yeah, I think the best thing is I'm actually running free events once a month now.
Awesome.
On Saturdays. If you go to brendonggiebel.com/rise, RISE, that's probably the best. I'm moving away from one-on-one, so I'll be very hard to contact, which is good, but it means we can kind of help more people by doing more things. So that'll be the best place to go to do that, or just check out my website, advancedmensdevelopment.com.au.
Beautiful.
There'll be some things on that. So yeah, there's a couple of different places.
Yeah, awesome, mate. We'll put the links to you down the bottom, and thanks for jumping on. And if there's one message that you'd like people to take away from this episode, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say that no one's born for an average existence, and we don't even have enough time on this planet to be happy, let alone be stuck in our own shit, stuck being unhappy, stuck experiencing the emotions that we don't want to. So whatever it is, just make the decision to do it, to start, and enjoy the ride, and do whatever you can to help just take that next step, whatever it is. Reach out to someone, or read a book, or do an event, or do sign up for a coach, whatever it is. But yeah, that would be my little message. Just
Awesome message, way to finish, mate. Thanks for jumping on and sharing the time, and we'll have to get you back on soon once you've finished your some of your live sessions, and have another chat, mate. We'll have to stay in touch. Thanks for jumping on today. It was awesome.
No problem.